Welcome to this week's iClass given by Rabbi Mendy Loewenthal from Chabad of South Kensington. This week's iClass is based on a Hasidic discourse from the book Torah from the first Rebbe of Chabad, Rabbi Zalman of Liadi. This week's parsha is Vayakhel. It talks about the building of the Mishkan, which was the mobile temple that traveled with the Jewish people in the desert 3,500 years ago. Over the past few weeks, we have spoken a lot about the Mishkan. Last week, 2 weeks ago, and 3 weeks ago, we had Truma, Tetzaveh, and Kitisa, which was Hashem telling Moses how the Jewish people should build the Mishkan. And this week and next week, we have the Jewish people actually building it. In the middle, we have the story of the golden calf, which is also in Kitisa. Okay, so let's take a look at the text of the Torah. We start in this week's Torah portion, Vayakhel, which is Exodus chapter 35, verse 1. And Moses assembled all the congregation of the children of Israel and said unto them, etc. Verse 2. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day there shall be for you a holy day, a Shabbat, Shabbaton, a double Shabbat to the Lord, etc. So, for some reason, even though we heard all about Shabbat during the Ten Commandments, the Torah is choosing to remind us again about Shabbat. Okay, let's move along, chapter 36, verse 14. And he made curtains of goat's hair for a tent over the tabernacle. 11 curtains he made them, etc. The Torah is getting down to business and telling us how they made the tent-like covering for the Mishkan. And then, in chapter 37, the Torah starts speaking about the vessels, the menorah, the ark, etc., that were actually inside the Mishkan. So let's look at the big picture. First, we have Shabbat. Then we have the curtains, and then the vessels that were inside the temple. It makes sense. First we build the house, and then we build the stuff that goes inside of it. Question. Firstly, why does the Torah mention Shabbat here if we have already heard about that in the Ten Commandments? Secondly, if we look at the Torah portion 3 weeks ago when Hashem is telling Moses how the Mishkan should be built, everything is listed in a different order. First, the Torah talks about the vessels, then the structure, the tent, and then Shabbat. So to summarize, 2 weeks ago the order goes, number 1, the vessels that were inside the Mishkan, number 2, the tent coverings, number 3, the Shabbat. And this week it goes, number 1, Shabbat, number 2, the tent coverings, and number 3, the vessels inside the temple. Why is there such a drastic difference? In fact, the order is totally opposite. Okay, so to understand this, we are going to explore a number of topics that at first glance seem unrelated, but we are going to bring them all together. We will explore the inner meaning of the temple, we will explore the inner meaning of Shabbat, and perhaps any connection between the temple and Shabbat. And then, once we've done that, hopefully we'll understand the order, why 2 weeks ago it's in one order and why this week it's the opposite order. Okay, so let's go to the temple. The Torah says in Exodus chapter 35 verse 8, and they shall make me a sanctuary and I will dwell in their midst. Meaning that Hashem will dwell in each one of us. The temple is not just a physical building where Hashem, so to speak, lives, but rather it is an inner space inside each one of us where Hashem can live. Now what does this mean? How does Hashem live inside of us? How is the temple inside of us? Okay. Practicing Judaism entails 2 major things. Number 1, it means studying the Torah. Number 2, we do the mitzvot. We don't just understand great philosophies, we also practice them. And we don't just blindly follow the pack, we try to study and understand. The Torah represents the vessels that were inside the temple, and the mitzvot represent the walls and the coverings around the temple. The reason is because when we study Torah, we digest the Torah, we understand it, and it fills us. And when we do a mitzvah, just like a tent surrounds us, or the tent of the Mishkan surrounds the Mishkan, so too when we do a mitzvah, the mitzvah surrounds us. Okay, now we're going to change subjects and we're going to talk about the world for a few minutes. Does Hashem think about the world? Is Hashem involved in creation? Sometimes you can be sitting at your desk and you're there. You're at work, you're focused, you've made a beeline to complete your project before the deadline. It's great. And sometimes you're sitting at your desk, your computer is on, you're typing, but you're not really there. You're thinking about something else, you're spaced out. Hashem has created the world. Is Hashem focused on us? Is Hashem spaced into creation? Okay, let's study this. First, there was nothing. Just Hashem. It was infinite. And then Hashem created. Creation is the feminine attribute of Hashem. Creation comes from the infinite. Because creation comes from the infinite, therefore, creation, Malchut, the feminine attribute of Hashem, is also infinite. Now this element, creation, has two ways of creating. Number one, it surrounds what it creates. Number two, it fills what it creates. When the sun shines, the sunshine surrounds us. If a cloud gets in the way, then the sunshine's blocked. So the sunshine is an example of Malchut, creation, surrounding its creation. Okay, now we're going to change topics, and we are going to talk about how this relates to our personal life. Hashem in our lives. When we do a mitzvah, we connect to Hashem. There are 248 positive mitzvot and 365 negative mitzvot. They correspond to the 248 limbs and the 365 sinews that a human body has. When we do a mitzvah, we draw down Malchut, creation. Hashem envelops us. Imagine if you are spaced out, and then you space in. When we do a mitzvah, Hashem, so to speak, spaces in on us and surrounds us. If you grab someone by the hand, you've only grabbed the hand, but you can drag the whole person towards you. So too, when we do a mitzvah, we can drag the whole Hashem, so to speak, to surround us. Beautiful. We change topic. Shabbat. After Shabbat, we smell spices. The reason we smell spices is because we get an extra soul on Shabbat. We feel faint after Shabbat, so we smell spices to revive us. The question is, what does it mean we get an extra soul? Are we double alive? Can we feel the soul? Here we have an image of the Shema. When we read the Shema, we get filled with a deep love for Hashem. It doesn't come naturally. We need to work on it. We need to think about it, study it, but in the end, after enough meditation, we become filled with a love for Hashem. And that is all during the week. During the week, we have to work. But on Shabbat, we get to rest. We get an extra soul. Our appreciation for Hashem on Shabbat doesn't come through hard work, but rather the appreciation we get on Shabbat is a higher sense of appreciation. Sometimes on a special day, we don't have to fight with ourselves. We are filled with love and appreciation, which we can only get from Hashem as a special gift, and this is Shabbat. Prayer. Prayer is a ladder. Prayer is a ladder between Shabbat and the week. It is that bridge between the gap. We have a ladder that connects our weekday with Shabbat. The prayer is a mini Shabbat during the week where we can appreciate an inner comfort with Hashem, an inner connection. Now let's move along to Torah. The Torah is like the menorah. Just like the menorah lights up, we also light up when we study Torah. We digest the Torah, it becomes a part of us. The deeper understanding makes our faces shine with appreciation. Also, the menorah has one middle branch, beautiful, and 6 branches on the side. The one middle branch corresponds to the written Torah, and the 6 branches correspond to the 6 sections of the Mishnah, which is the oral Torah. Now, we will tie this all back to the parasha. The proper order for us to connect to Hashem is to first start with the Torah. we start with what we can understand. We can relate to the Torah. It makes sense. It talks to us. And this is the inner vessels of the temple, the menorah, the ark, etc., the things that fill the temple. We then reach a higher appreciation for the whole thing, and the result is that we do a mitzvah. The mitzvah causes Hashem to envelop us. Just like the structure of the Mishkan, the tent coverings that surround and envelop the Mishkan, or the temple. And then we get to Shabbat, which is an extra soul, the appreciation for Hashem that we can only get as a present from Hashem. That is the order 3 weeks ago in Terumah, when God is telling Moses, or Hashem is telling Moses, how we should build the temple. So Hashem is telling us how we should build a temple. Because it's talking to us, it's in our language and the order that we are supposed to do it. But this week, the Parsha is talking about how we are building the Mishkan for Hashem to live in it. And because we're building it for Hashem, it has to be in the order that Hashem likes it. In order for Hashem to bring His infinite self into the world, Hashem needs to contract Himself. And this is a series of contractions that go from very, very big to very, very small. So we start with Shabbat, which is the highest level, when things are very, very holy. And then we move along to the mitzvah during the week, which is a little less high. It's surrounding us. It's like the tent that's covering the Mishkan. And then we get to Hashem contracts Himself so much that Hashem can even fit inside of us. And that is through the Torah that we study. And that corresponds to the vessels of the temple. And that is why there is the change of order. Shabbat Shalom.